Hi, my name is Marianela Ciolfi Felice from KTH Royal Institute of Technology, and I'm going to present the paper Studying Choreographic Collaboration in the Wild on behalf of my co-authors Fdili, Alaoui, and Wendy Mackay from Université Paris-Saclay. Dance making is a rich context for the design of interactive systems, and specifically for creativity support tools, or CSTs, because it is highly idiosyncratic. There is no standard method. It is also collaborative, and in fact, choreographers and dancers can fluidly take a variety of roles during the creative process and on the basis of each piece. And it doesn't depend on a digital tool to be carried out, but many dance artists are increasingly interested in incorporating technology to their creative process. The study in our paper targets two gaps. A gap in the literature of CSTs that address collaboration in dance making from the beginning of the creative process, before dance fragments have been created and rehearsed, and a gap in long-term deployments of technology for supporting dance making in real-world settings. In this talk, I will introduce a 5-month field study that we conducted during a course on dance and technology in Paris, France, running from October 2017 to March 2018, in which a choreographer and 6 dancers used a CST called notation. Our intention was to observe and reflect upon how technology would mediate the crafting and the documenting of the piece, which was to involve several technologies in the making and during performance at the conservatory's end-of-the-year show. So this is not an evaluation of notation, but a concrete case study of a real dance context. First, I will briefly introduce notation, but for more detail, please refer to the paper. Notation is a pen-based mobile tool that we had designed with for choreographers and dancers in the frame of a long-term participatory design process, which we published in previous work. We built it to support exploration and documentation of choreographic ideas from the beginning of the creative process. Notation runs on the iPad Pro, which can be brought into the dance studio. Users can sketch with a pencil, as well as link and interact with their own choreographic annotations without enforcing a particular dance representation. For example, they can compose a space and the time for their piece through interactive floor plans and timelines. They can also insert pictures and videos, as well as content from another's notations document. 6 dance students participated in the full course and in the study. The median of their dance experience, including their studies, was 14.5 years. The second author of this paper was the teacher in charge of the course, and at the time of the study, she had 8 years of experience as a professional choreographer. We designed this study to avoid increasing dancers' workload and to minimize my intervention. The first class, I gave an iPad and a pencil to the teacher and to each group of students. I trained them in the use of the tool, and I invited them to explore its features. I then observed each class, taking notes, and from time to time taking pictures. Towards the end of each class, the teacher would debrief the session, and I would ask each group to explain what they had created in notation, if anything. In the final part of the course, I interviewed each dancer separately, asking them about recent, memorable stories of collaboration with other dancers and with the teacher, as well as stories related to notation and other technologies present in the studio, such as Kinect-based visualizations, vibration sensors, and electronic music. We analyzed interview transcripts and field notes using a combination of inductive and deductive thematic analysis. First, during the inductive coding, we focused the analysis on collaboration between participants with and without technology, trying to capture details on practices, roles, and needs, as well as breakdowns and breakpoints. Then, during the deductive phase, we organized our findings as responses to our initial assumptions about the role of the tool in mediating collaboration. These three assumptions come from our experience designing notation and our previous work with choreographers and their collaboration with dancers, composers, and sound or light technicians. First, we expected that notation would actively mediate the exploration and documentation of ideas from the very beginning of the creative process, since we had designed it to do so. We also expected that providing dancers with the CST to document these very early stage ideas would give them more agency along the creative process, especially regarding ownership of the generated material, because notation would capture traces of early explorations that could be attributed to collaborators. And finally, we expected that having a shared CST would result in an agreement on common annotation policies so that they could understand each other's documentation. First, rather than supporting our first assumption, the tool played a wider variety of roles, from not mediating collaboration across groups of students at the beginning of the course, because they were working in an isolated way and used the tool mainly to capture and learn their own dance fragments, to then mediating horizontal collaboration among dancers, who started using the tool to teach fragments to each other, as shown in this video. And also vertical collaboration between dancers and the teacher, since she used her centralized core to transmit the global structure of the piece and to conduct feedback sessions based on rehearsal videos. The dancers, in turn, use the digital score as a support for negotiating creative decisions with the teacher. Our findings didn't support the second assumption. Instead, we found that participants' roles, as well as their perception of those roles and of what collaboration means, determined how they use the CST. And in particular, we noted that dancers perceived the tension between their own agency and the teacher's hierarchical role, which the technology did not attenuate. Third, the inclusion of the tool didn't result in participants negotiating a common annotation policy. Instead, it sparked conversations on how to notate dance, which led some dancers to find or refine their own notating styles. In the paper, we reflect on how messy and risky it was to study choreographic collaboration in the wild, and in particular, the challenges that we faced in our multiple roles as designers of notation, as researchers observing a real-world setting, and in Sarah's case, also as a participant. As a key takeaway, we advocate for designers of CSTs to avoid posing their tools as solutions to hierarchical social dynamics in dance making. We argue that this would result in shifting power from people to technology. We advise them instead to consider and study the complexity of collaboration patterns and emerging and changing roles in dance making. I would like to conclude by thanking everyone that made this research possible and you for watching this talk, and I invite you to read our paper and to contact us if you have questions or comments.